Is this your king? Ashra Kwesi. Yep, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Man, happy to see absolutely nobody in the chat right now. That's okay. We're gonna keep it pushing. Oh man, it's gonna be okay. But with me today, you see, at this point, I usually say what's up to the party people in the chat. There is no party people in the chat, so we're gonna go and continue with my usual banter. There we go. We got born again Rome in the building. All right, that's what I'm talking about. If you have not yet already, please like, share, and subscribe. Please share the link. Tell a friend to tell a friend that it's him again. And if you like how it goes down at the BK Apologist, you can show your love via PayPal. Or if you'd like to be a monthly supporter of BK, you could become a Patreon where you will get an assortment of teaching aids to help you in your personal Bible study. And yes, here we go. People are coming in. All right, we got KJ in the building. We got my man Romy Rome. We got Leon J or Leon J. So that's good. All right, I was a little scared there for a minute. I'm like, man, nobody's coming. This is terrible. Uh, but as always, I have my man riding shotgun, showing us that southern hospitality all the way from the upper, not the upper, but the other part of the Mason Dixon line. None other than MJ Jackson. What's going on, sir?
Grace and peace to you, big bro. It's Wednesday. Um, just excited to continue this series. Shout out to Pastor Bennett in the chat. Everybody, please subscribe to his podcast.
Absolutely.
Was it Y'all Don't Like Me? That's really good. So please subscribe to Pastor Bennett's podcast. I got a chance to listen to him interview BK, and that was a good episode. So that'll be something to look out for. But yeah, man, just excited to continue this series. Um, this is something that needed to be done, and I'm happy that that God has placed it on your heart to go ahead and tackle this issue because there's so many of them. They're like cockroaches. We still haven't got to, and somebody's gonna be offended by what I said, but I understand. Um, we still haven't got to John Henry Clark. We still haven't got to John G. Jackson, who is my favorite. I like John G. Jackson. John G. Jackson actually tried to cite sources. So while I think there are some problems with his sources, he is not as blatantly pseudo as the rest of these cats are. The rest of these cats are blatantly pseudo, habitual pseudo scholars.
Right.
But he could be a legitimate quote unquote. Um, really, there's no such thing as a free thinker, but I'm using the popular sense. He could be labeled a free thinker
Right.
with the sources that he tries to bring into the conversation. But I'm just excited to keep this ball rolling, and yeah.
And today we'll be looking at one of the triple OG from the conscious community, and that's Ashwa Kwesi. He's one of the original guys who would lead trips to Egypt every year. And thank you, gentlemen, for blessing us mere underlings with your knowledge. Oh, stop it,
No.
stop it. But so a lot of what we see today in the modern times really comes and stems from this particular individual. Like he's in a lot of ways he's patient zero for a lot of the conscious community information that we see, specifically when it comes to critiquing and throwing shots at Christianity. So, with that being said, before we get into it, what are your initial thoughts about Mr. Quasey?
Yeah, I mean, he just sounds so convincing, man. He'll be pointing to things on the wall, and This is where the Genesis story comes from. And so, to the person who don't know, you're like, it's kind of shocking because you trust in this dude that he's right. This is where the Genesis story comes from, and this is where the man and the woman, you can't have one without the other. This is the feminine energy and the masculine energy, and this is God, and it's very convincing. But
So,
nobody,
so convincing that this is the rhetoric that most people, not all, but most people in the country community get that rhetoric from.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, what in epistemology? Number one, knowledge is justified true belief. So, you in order to have knowledge of something, number one, you got to believe that it's true, or at least believe it to be true. Yeah, that is your uh, attitude toward some proposition. And number two, the proposition has to be true. It has to be in accord with reality. And number three, you have to have some type of justification for how you came to know something. And so the question that should be in all of our head is, okay, what is Ashra Kwesi's justification for even making this assertion? Like, what's the evidence?
Right.
What's the evidence found?
And what we're going to see is what he tries to provide as evidence. He does a lot of front loading. First of all, he does a lot of front loading, and he poisons the well so that you have no other choice but to see it his way. Right. So we're going to see that in these video clips. And also, the first clip is really a matter of semantics. It's semantics, and you're going to see why I say that. So in this one, sir, um, if you could play from the 13-second mark. Well, you're already there, Troy. You can let it go from there.
All right, ready?
Let's go.
All right. Everybody let me know if y'all can hear it. And these biblical stories we got, that's all we know.
Make it
Like
louder.
Moses and the boot rushes who had to hide from the so
Yeah. Pause it and make it a little louder, sir. Yeah, go back a little.
oh, my bad.
So good. Big up to Michelle Turner, Bodega ladies in the house. D New in the house. Yeah,
Let
they
me
say
make
it's
sure
just
I
low.
shared it correctly.
Mr. Bennett saying it's low. Dr. No says it's low. And as we wait, ladies and gentlemen, please, as always, share the link. We want to fill the room as much as possible. All right. So
All right, let's try it again. I turned it up this time.
let's go.
And these biblical stories we got, that's all we know. Like Moses and the bulrushes who had to hide from the so-called evil pharaohs out to kill the firstborn of the Hebrew people, even though there's no documentation of any Jews, Hebrews who were during this time in Kemet.
All right, you stop it there.
Here we see the story in stone. The Brooklyn Papyrus? Anybody?
Hey, hey, don't drop the gun, man. You stealing
I'm
my thunder
sorry.
here.
I'm sorry.
but but Mr. Kwesi makes the claim that there are no Jews during this time in Kemet. Technically, he's correct. And why do I say that? But he's also playing semantics, though, at the same time. So why do I say that? Well, we find here in the Jewish life in ancient Egypt, Brooklyn Museum Open Collection Exhibition 752 says here that originally the term Jew referred to the residents of the territory of Judah, one of the three areas that made up the united monarchy ruled by King Saul, David, Solomon, and their successors during the Persian period in Egypt, Dynasty 27, 525 to 404 BCE. The term was, as it is today, both a religious and ethnic designation. So he is correct when he says there was no Jews in Egypt at that time, because the term Jew does not arrive until we have a monarchy in Israel, right? There was no nation of Israel during that time. So, yes, no Jews at that time. But what the question should be, Were there any Semitic people there? Were the people who were to become the nation of Israel, were they there at that time? Well, we look at Archaeology Review 42, Exodus Evidence. Egyptologist looks at biblical history. It says another example places the house remains of workers, most probably slaves in the Egyptian temple, who may have been proto Israelites or a closely related population in Egypt in the 12th century BCE, in the time of Ramesses. The workers were part of a team in western Thebes tasked with demolishing the temple of earlier King Aya and Horemheb. The University of Chicago archaeologists who excavated the site in the 1930s uncovered the remains of a house and part of a second one in which the workers lived at the site. It was not made of bricks or stones. After all, these were workers, but of wattle and daub. Nevertheless, the plan of the dwellings were unmistakably that of four-room house, considered characteristic of proto-Israelites emerging in Canaan or Canaan at this time. Indeed, the four-room house is widely considered as an ethnic marker for the presence of Israelites. As Israel's ethnogenesis has not yet been finalized, one might also consider that some other closely related population might be the builders of these houses. So they posit here that these people, uh, these Semitic people, they knew that they were Semitic based on the style in which the house was created. And what they're also saying that from this pool of Semitic people, you're going to find what they call the proto-Israelites, meaning the people who would come to be known as Israelites, because the nation isn't here until the Exodus. They go to Mount Sinai. They get into contract with Yahweh, and then they go into Canaan and displace the people there, and then we have a nation, right? So those people prior to that are already here based on archaeology evidence. So here's actually one of those houses right here that they excavated. Okay. And here's a drawing of how these houses looked from above. So we have that as evidence for Semitic people. We also have what my good friend MJ talked about was the Papyrus Brooklyn. MJ, since you brought it up, I'll let you read this one.
Yay. This document is the Papyrus Brooklyn 35.1446, excellently published by W.C. Hayes, a papyrus of the late Middle Kingdom in the Brooklyn Museum, 1955. It is part of the Register of Criminals of the Great Prison at Thebes, currently for years 10 to 31 of the 12th dynasty Pharaoh Amen, Amenemhat III, about 1833 to 1812 BC. Some 60 years later, in Dynasty, was it 13? Uh, the 13th Dynasty, the reverse of the outdated register uh, unutilized
Utilize.
was
Hmm.
utilized for a list of 79 servants in a large Egyptian household, 45 of these being Asiatics, mainly Semites, apparently sold into Egypt as Joseph was to be. The register was in use only about a century before Joseph, circa 1700 BC onward, and the list was made only 40 years or so before his time. We thus have a new background material for Joseph's enslavement and imprisonment in Egypt. And this is from a recently published Egyptian papyrus in its bearing on the Joseph story. K.A. Kitchen. There you go.
So yeah, so he's right. No quote unquote Jews, because the term wasn't used until there was a united monarchy in Israel. But there's definitely proof of Semitic people, those
Hmm.
who would become the nation of Israel. So he's playing semantics here.
He's playing with his audience.
Okay. So that's one. So now, if you could start playing the second video, it gets worse, guys. That was light. That was light. It gets worse. So yeah. So if you could just cue up the next one. I see my man Built for Speed is in the building. We got Hawkins in the building. We got In Context with Jim Green in the building. All
And
right.
what's the time? You
Just
said play
just let
all
it
of this
play.
one.
Just let it play. It's a lot of people.
Good music.
Go ahead, brothers. That's right. My relative did that. I'm serious. Yo, you got that.
Hey, I think I went to the wrong video. I went
No, what?
to
No, no. No, that's. No, yeah, yeah, you're right. That is the wrong one.
yeah, my bad.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to that soon enough.
I'm sitting there enjoying this music. My bad, y'all. Let me see here.
All right, guys. Please share. Please share.
All right, God's chosen people, right?
No, no, not that one.
Origin of Adam.
Yes, that's the one.
That's the one. Origin of Adam and Eve. Are you sure?
Yeah, that's the
Let me
next one.
double check. Okay, okay. My bad, y'all. All right. Make sure I got the volume up.
All right, let's go.
Our African ancestors, brothers and sisters, saw the matrilineal system. Keep in mind that all the kings had to come through the line of the woman. Is that right? What man can say he didn't come from a woman? Please step forward so we can understand where you came from. So our ancestors had no problems understanding that divine principle of that sacred womb where we all came from. That was the basis and foundation of the goddess principle and the matrilineal system in Africa. And our ancestors saw, in order for the king to rule the throne, like you have Ursa Ma'at here, the goddess Shashat. Here you see her in the tree of divine wisdom, giving the fruit of divine knowledge and wisdom in order for him to rule the throne. It had nothing to do with no tree of good and evil. The patriarchs who came from the north, the Hyksos and others, who had a misogynistic nature, a hatred towards the woman, could not conceive of a woman nor a goddess giving a man anything. And that story was corrupted. The tree of divine wisdom and divine life was corrupted into the tree of what? Because here we have that they created and their biblical stories and the opening of the pages in Genesis that there was Adam and Eve, is that right? And they were not to eat of the tree of what? Knowledge of what? Good and evil. Now, who was seduced by the serpent and ate from the tree? That's why, sisters, you got to watch and hear that sound. But anyway, here we see that she was seduced to eat the fruit, and then she seduced who? Adam. Now, we are told that that's the reason for the world's sins of this first woman eating of the tree of good and evil, and that that's also not only the reason for the world's sins, but her monthly cycle is to remind her of that sin. This is what's taught in the church. Okay? Now, when sisters start jacking that preacher up, who's been equally spiritually enslaved himself, to tell that story, and that we were born in sin, there was no story whatsoever in the Kemetic Nile Valley that we were born in sin. So a few years ago, back
All right, you
in
can stop it here.
boy, time is fast. Seemed like I just got.
All right, so he goes to the wall relief, and he said basically says that this is where the Bible gets a story from Adam and Eve with Eve given the fruit, and how this is actually a good thing, but the Bible perverts it and makes it an evil thing, right? So the question is that what's really happening at that relief? Because if you notice, we don't see the whole relief, right, in this video. But there's another God there. In fact, there's two other gods in this relief, and we're gonna look at a telling, a definition a description of what the relief is actually showing us. All right. So this is from the Ritual of the Ais Tree, a reconstruction by Mary Ann Mazzari, editor, Egyptologist, museum educator, and university instructor. All right. This thesis reconstructs a possible sequence of events in the ritual of the Ais tree of ancient Egypt. The main piece of evidence is the festal wall stele of Ramesses. Is that the fifth or the sixth? I always mess up with the Roman numerals.
That's the fourth.
That's the fourth. All right. Isid tree scenes have been discovered on temple walls from the reigns of Thutmose the first to Hadrian. Reliefs and captions are examined and are supplemented by texts from other monuments, including stelae, obelisk, and statuary. All right. The scenes are analyzed by their locations within the temples with respect to interior and exterior locations, wall registers, cardinal directions, and number of participants depicted. The stages of the ritual that occur most often in the scenes are the deities writing on the Isid tree. Writing on the Isid tree. The king being presented with his said festivals, and the king kneeling in front of the tree. Once thought to be a royal tree where a miracle happened, the thesis concludes that the Isid tree scenes are part of the legitimization of a king's claim to the throne and relate to the coronation as a ritual of status elevation through reciprocal actions rather than divine right. The purpose of these scenes is to aid in the dis- dissemination of knowledge regarding the king's tutelary, years of rule, and numbers of said festivals as divine gifts from the gods. So again, so this is the relief that Quasi is showing, right? So it's not just the goddess, but there's two other gods here, right? And they're all holding something. And I'm going to spoil it for you. It's not fruit, right?
Mm.
This is from the Ramesseum Astronomical Room, North Wall, East Side. All right, let's keep reading it. The Isid tree scene is carved in sunk relief and is mostly intact. Upon physical inspection in March 2010, faint traces remain of green and blue paints on the king's 183 chest and throne, on Amun's chest and throne, and on the branches and leaves of the tree. Ramesses II is seated on the throne next to an Isid tree. This is only preserved. This is the only preserved Isid tree scene showing the king seated on a throne. The throne is low backed and has no decoration. The king holds a crook and flail across his chest in his far left hand, and the annex in his near right hand across his lap. He wears the short Nubian wig and a uraeus at his brow, the straight beard of kingship, and a double plumed headdress with ram's horns, a solar disk, and two cobras, each wearing a double plumed crown with a solar disk. The outline of his kilt is visible around his legs. The king is easily identified by two large cartouches at the top center of the scene using the final form of his praenomen, Yusa Marata Setapara, completely butchered that, behind the king and seated on the throne, which is now backed and has as its only carved decoration seven kneeling figures with arms raised in adoration on its base, is Atum, wearing the double crown and a curved beard. These kneeling figures carry the labels. Can't read that, that's hieroglyphics. All right, here we go. The painted decoration of the throne is in faded red, dark blue, and light blue in Rashi pattern. Artum holds a leaf of the Isid tree in his far left hand and a stylus in his near right hand. He is depicted writing on the leaf. His bull's tail projects from his lap above his knees and falls in front of his lower legs. Standing in front of and facing Ramesses is Sak Sakfet Abui. In her far right hand, she holds a stylus and is writing on the Isid leaf. She's not giving any fruit, guys. She's writing on a stylus. In her near left hand, she holds a notched palm branch and has his um, symbols suspended from it and a seated figure with upraised arms underneath it, symbolizing an eternity of S festivals. Standing behind Sakfet Abui and facing the king is Thoth. In his far right hand, he is holding a stylus and is writing on the leaf. They're all writing on the leaves. There's no giving of any fruit here, guys. In his near left hand, he holds a notched palm branch with a single said symbol hanging from it. Now, here's a sketch of the relief, but I'm going to blow it up for you a little bit so you can see what's in the hands of the two gods and the goddess. They're all holding stylus. They're writing on the tree,
Oh Lord.
depicting how long he will reign and his many names of praise. They're writing these things on a tree, part of his coronation ceremony. Does this sound like the story of Adam and Eve, MJ?
So this ain't about no dog. I'm trying not to say nothing crazy. This ain't about no creation story or anything like that, or human beings fall from grace. No, it
Nothing
doesn't
like
look
that.
like free. It looked like a pencil to me.
They're all carrying stylus. These are writing implements that they're writing different things um, concerning the newly installed Nesut
This is crazy.
Ramesses. Has nothing nowhere near anything like the Adam and Eve story.
So basically, what happens is I have a background knowledge of everything. Well, I wouldn't say that they have a knowledge of everything that the Bible teaches, but I have some knowledge of the things that the Bible teach. And so the goal for me is to find something similar. Oh, I found a tree,
Right.
and there's a woman by a tree, and it
Therefore,
looks like she's holding something.
right.
Let's just say that it's fruit and it's wisdom. Oh, I'm gonna tell people that this is where the Bible twisted Kemet's teaching.
But
This
he's
is a
doing the
joke.
twisting.
Yeah.
Now, it's sad because he's still bringing people to Kemet. He's been doing this for at least 30 years. He's been showing the same relief for 30 years and saying the same story. But if you look at the relief, you can see that it's not what he is saying. It is not what he is saying, but he front loads so much prior to him showing the relief, and he poisons the well so much is that you now see it through a very truncated view. It's like, oh yeah, she's holding a fruit. See, tree, fruit, woman. I'm like, what about those two other guys there? I don't remember. I don't remember those two other guys being in the Adam and Eve story.
Mm-mm.
That should have gave it away. That should have gave it away. So yeah,
Mm-mm-mm.
the show's funny. I'm gonna draw a picture and be like, this is proof that sugar go on grits. Oh man. All right. So now, lastly, we're gonna look at this other clip. This is the chosen one clip.
All right, and what's the
3 minute, the 3 minute mark.
3 minute mark?
Wow, Wall's
God
in the building. What's
chosen
up, Wow
children.
Wall? It's good to see you, sis. We got my man. I saw. We got Reginald Wells in the check-in. What's up, man? So yeah, man, 3 minute mark.
All right, ready?
Let's go.
All right.
Of rocks, stone, cutting it out and setting it 600 feet back where you presently see it at today. So it's not in its original position, but fortunately, it was saved for us to see. On the right side, you'll see the Ta-Nehisi, or Nubians. On the left side going in, you'll see the Hittite forces. Now, we had our own civil war. Now, I've heard other guys say that those are slaves on the other side. Those are not slaves. They are captives of war, just like you have the captives of war of the Hittites. And keep in mind that Nefertari is the queen that he married. She
All
is
right,
a
stop it
Ta-Nehisi.
there.
Who is he marrying? He's
So he's saying, and we've heard this regurgitated a lot, that Egypt never really had slaves. He's like, these are not slaves. The people that you see chained on the wall by their necks, these are not slaves.
These employees.
These are prisoners of war, right?
Oh Lord.
Looks they look enslaved to me. But this is what he's saying. He's saying there's supposed to be a difference, right? They're not slaves, right? Okay. So now we're gonna look at the Oxford Encyclopedia of Ancient Egypt, Oxford University Press 2001. Let's see what they got to say. Actually, MJ, if you could do the honors.
Hmm. The consequence of such usage was that native, was that
Terminology.
terminology may be misleading to scholars. In reading Egyptian texts, therefore, context is the only criterion for determining connotation. While interpreting documents, the different forms of servitude must be considered according to the various rights and services of human involved. Unfree people might include not only slaves, but also, in fact, others with various degrees of encumbered liberty. Therefore, a slave was a person owned by a master, as was any other chattel used as a master pleased, to the extent of even being disposed of by inheritance, gift, sale, and so forth.
I continue.
In documents, groups have been recognizable by the collective noun MRYT, written with the ho sign. Those groups belong to individuals and institutions. Since the Old Kingdom, they were frequently mentioned along with land and cattle. In the Middle Kingdom, they could be acquired by the bequest or another arrangement. In the New Kingdom, they could be recruited from captives or given in an endowment.
Wait a minute. They could be recruited from who? From where?
Captives.
Captives. But I thought captives of war were not slaves.
Mm.
Continue.
The principal and oldest cause of slavery was capture in war.
Wait a minute. Can you say that again, sir? Real slow.
The principal and oldest cause of slavery was capture in war.
But I thought people captured in war weren't slaves. So not only were they slaves, this was the principal and oldest cause of slavery.
Only when Egypt does it, they are not slaves.
But continue reading, sir.
In ancient Egypt, the general rule was that all captives, not only those from fighting forces, become a royal resource. The king could then resettle them in colonies for labor. He had equally the right to grant some of them to temples and to meritorious individuals. Also, they might be booty for his soldiers who had showed bravery in the field. The captives thus assigned to an individual could be as many as 19 slaves, both male and females. Temples might receive unlimited numbers. Inscriptions abound in references to many thousands.
But they weren't slaves. They were captives of war.
Only when it comes to Egypt, sir.
So, I mean, it was their main resource was slaves that they've gotten via war. And I'm like,
Mm, mm,
is this your king?
mm, mm,
Is
mm.
this your king? He plays semantics. He front loads and poisons the well so that you can only see a fraction of the relief, even though he shows you the whole relief. But he does such a great job at front loading that he makes you narrow your own vision, which is an amazing skill in itself. But and then, oh, those people. But here's the thing: even if I didn't read the source, MJ, if you saw on a relief on a wall a bunch of black folk tied with their necks together, I mean, they kind of look like they're enslaved. That's I mean, even from someone coming from the modern era looking at that, it's like it's hard for me to think something other than they're being dominated. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'm like, it's bad. It's really bad. And I mean, and there's tons of other things that we could have shown, but I just wanted to do a quick sample of the craziness that Ashra Kwesi has been getting away with for the last 30 somewhat years.
Mm.
You got to remember, guys, he brings, as you saw in some of the videos, he brings a lot of people to Egypt every year, and his job, part of it is to inspire and show the greatness of black people, which I respect that. But at the same time, in order for him to show the greatness, he has to belittle and critique Christianity to do so, and that's where we have an issue with, and he's constantly indoctrinating people to if they have any faith in Jesus, it's shaken by the time this tour is over,
Mm.
and that's by design. That's by design. Graham Jones says it's not slavery; it's an involuntary job training program.
Mm, mm, mm.
Yep, yep, and it was one of the oldest training programs in ancient Kemet as well. I mean, the pharaoh did whatever he wanted. Like I throw a couple in the temple, I throw a couple over here in the fields. My general, he did a great job in the last battle. Here's four for you. Let me give another 10 to my lieutenant. He's been looking out. You know what I mean? He's like,
So he's been looking at.
yeah, I mean, it's like it's a resource. They're not treated as human beings, and they don't get to escape. They don't get to be freed. They're prisoners of war.
Chattel.
You know? Yeah, basically, right? So, but again, even if I didn't show you the citation, if I didn't show you the encyclopedia, there's a bunch of black people tied across their necks together. That doesn't look happy.
Mm.
That's not a positive look there. You know?
It's
And
black on black violence, baby.
I mean, but that's what it was. That's what it was. So, but man, that's all I wanted to share. MJ, what are your final thoughts before we wrap things up?
Once again, we're gonna have some folks, and I haven't checked the comment sections in a lot of the videos we've done. But once again, you're gonna have people who, just because they perceive him to be trying to uplift the community, they feel like we shouldn't say anything. And this kumbaya mentality in the African American community is destructive, because you can't just let people be putting lies out there. I mean, you can't do it. The truth is a good thing, and there's no such thing as BK's truth and MJ's truth. And no, there is the truth, in which we showed that when you examine the information that he's presenting, it's not even true. He's just making stuff up.
Pretty much.
He's out there freestyling. This dude is freestyling, lying to black people. I mean, how can you say you love black people and you just lying to them?
And again, you don't have to create out of thin air the history of black excellence.
Mm-mm.
We are amazing people, but we don't have to make up stories to prove that.
Egypt was a great empire. Egypt was great in its own right. Hence, why does Egypt need the Bible? Why? Egypt was good. Can't that be good enough?
I guess not. But again, they're resorting to therapeutic mythology.
Therapeutic mythology. That should be on a T-shirt.
So, and it's sad. You don't have to create these fairy tales of black excellence. We have actually real people, real events that did amazing things. You don't have to, because when you keep doing this, the message you are sending is that we don't have black excellence, that we don't have a history of greatness. So we just had to make something out of whole cloth. That's what you're actually saying. You know what I mean? That's sad. That's very sad. But on that note, man, um, quickly, MJ, is there anything we can expect from you soon?
Yes, me and Chris Brian Samuel will be doing a Freestyle Friday this Friday. I think Natasha Crane is talking social justice.
Okay.
So, our red flags kind of went up. So we're going to be reviewing that. There's some stuff in that. And, we just want to give a biblical perspective on it and be on the lookout for that.
Oh, look at this. You see this? Look at this. When are we getting a bodega on Friday? Well, I mean, if you come through, if the bodega ladies come through, we can make it happen. I'll figure it out. Yeah, it's been a while since we've done a bodega on a Friday. So we can, but
and I'd be more than happy to move my stuff to Saturday if necessary.
So if the bodega ladies are down, let's talk behind the scenes. Let's get it going. It's been a while. Absolutely. Nah, not me. Nah, you can't bring it up and be like, nah, no. You see, that's not how it works, man. The person that brings it up usually ends up spearheading it. So you lucky I didn't even tell you to spearhead it. So, but yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk behind the scenes, man. We'll talk behind the scenes. So, it'll be. Man. So with that being said, MJ Jackson and BK signing off. Peace.